Hello everyone and welcome back to another Universe Sandbox video, and today I'm going to be doing a Q&A interview with a very special guest from the Universe Sandbox team. So if you saw recently, I put a video out where you guys could ask your questions to ask the developers, so I've put a bunch of those forward, and yeah, we're going to go ahead and find out what they have to say about each of your questions that you guys put forward. Plus, I threw some of my own questions in there as well. So I really hope you enjoy this video, guys. And yeah, if you do, let's see if we can go for 50 likes on today's video, guys. And also subscribe for more. Helps in the journey to 24,000. But yeah, enough of that all said and done. Let's get straight into this interview, guys. Right, so here is the interview, everyone watching. So I am with Dan, who's one of the members of the Universe Sandbox team. So Dan, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone, what you do with the game?
Hi, I'm Dan Dixon, the original creator of Universe Sandbox and director of the team. And yeah, I've been working on Universe Sandbox for, gosh, almost like 15 years now. And it's my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's a very fun game. And obviously that's why we are having this discussion today, really. So I've got a bunch of questions that everyone watching, a bunch of these questions are what you guys actually commented. So this is now the chance for all of the questions that we may have had over the past few years of playing Universe Sandbox. I mean, I've been doing videos on it for, we're coming up to the 6th year now. So, I mean, I think there's been a lot of questions and stuff that people have been asking for years and just bits and bobs. So I think it would be great to go over and discuss it. So, without further ado, everyone watching, we will get started with the questions. So, first question, Dan. So, this has been a big one, and I've always wondered this myself as well. And that is, when are you guys going to add complex compositions like organics and methane, carbon back into the game? Because obviously they were in the game at one point a long time ago, but then they mysteriously disappeared without any mention. So we're all wondering, will they make a return?
Well, they were added, but they weren't added well. They weren't well integrated into affecting the things that they should have affected. So we have been relatively slowly working on a feature we're calling mixed materials, which is going to allow us to have, I should be careful about making any promises about exactly how it's going to work, but it looks like you're going to be like for atmospheres, you're going to be able to have up to 4 materials per atmosphere. And well, I guess the specifics are unclear exactly how it's going to work, but yeah, so that is, this mixed materials feature is what is going to allow us to add in all of those things. So organics, which is going to be kind of also the basis of like a very simplistic life simulation, where we're actually measuring the amount of kind of life, the weight, or again, it's also kind of unclear exactly how we're going to measure that, but that, and then methane as a material, and yeah, potentially carbon. Does that one make sense? Maybe. So that is so the short answer is that we are definitely working on that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very exciting. I mean, methane, that's one that I've wanted to see personally myself, is another liquid. Also, we've got water. We've had that since, obviously, the beginning of time, but just another liquid that would also be usable in games. So it would also massively increase the amounts of customization possible in the game as well. And also, one unique feature of that is Saturn's moon Titan. In theory, it could have a new upgrade to its composition in the game as well, which could be very interesting with the addition of methane.
Liquid lakes of methane are part of the kind of the description of that feature. So that is one of the goals, is to be able to do is to kind of more properly simulate Titan.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's going to be absolutely fantastic, and that is one I cannot wait to see. So out of all of the materials though, so is there any other ones that you would plan to add, or was it mainly just the like the organics, carbon, methane? Is there any other ones that you'd probably sneak in there? Or
gosh, offhand, I mean, like whatever the top 4 materials of our atmosphere, we want to make sure, so what that's going to be, nitrogen, oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide. I think those might be the 4 for the. I think those might be the 4 for the Earth. I know one of the tricky things, and I don't know that we've really crossed this threshold yet, but is, so methane is a greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, but depending on the mix, it's not I don't think there's a really clear formula for determining what is the greenhouse effect of XYZ amount of methane, carbon dioxide, water vapor. Um, and so it's unclear to me how we're going to calculate that. I remember, this is kind of a very kind of anecdotal comment that a climate scientist made to me once, was that you can calculate it, but it takes like a modern desktop computer running overnight to you give it this percent of these materials, and it takes like many hours to calculate the proper greenhouse effect. So I don't, which I don't think we're not planning on. Like that. I don't think that's going to be practical for us to do. So it's unclear to me how we're actually going to solve that problem. It may be an unsolvable problem, at least in real time, and so we might have to do some like extremely heavy hand waving. But I don't know. We're going to try to be as realistic as possible with that.
Yeah.
But so there are definitely challenges with trying. It's like, yeah, everybody wants these materials. I want these materials. I want to be able to adjust them. But then like the effect that they actually have from a kind of a temperature heating perspective, it's unclear how we're going to be able to, how accurate we're going to be able to be with that. But we are going to give it our best for sure. So
I mean, that does sound really exciting. Obviously, I can't wait to have a go on the build. Once that first comes into a development test build, I mean, sign me up. I want to have a crack at that straight away. I mean, it'd be absolutely fantastic to see the increase in materials. Because I think I'm probably pretty much sure you can agree with this as well. But I think materials, or just more materials, or bringing back organics and carbon dioxide, I think that's probably been one of the most popular sort of requests that I've seen. A lot in the comments as well, but yeah, adding those back into the game with their practical uses and stuff. I mean, that sounds really exciting, actually. And again,
the reason we took them out was because they weren't well integrated. They weren't well simulated. They weren't really interacting with other things. You couldn't do things that caused them to change. So we're wanting to we remove them because they just kind of weren't. They just kind of felt broken, or they felt like half implemented, and they really were kind of half implemented. So the plan is to wait until until they're we've got this new system that allows us to like properly integrate them, so like the atmospheric mass, just so that everything kind of ties together, which it wasn't previously. So, but yeah, I'm excited about that feature as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember like following on from what you said, I remember like organics, it pretty much didn't do anything. When it was originally out in the game when I started back all the way in 2016, I remember it existed, but it never did anything, and I always wondered why. But obviously, there's a reason. Is it just didn't really have any stuff? And I guess it was the same with carbon dioxide as well, because when you had added carbon dioxide, all it did was make a normal looking gas giant, which would. I mean, there wasn't any difference between that and a hydrogen gas giant. So yeah, it'd be really cool to see them actually get the properties, and maybe a transition between rocky and gas giant planet, because that was one thing I was discussing with you guys the other day, and I've seen people say it as well. But yeah, having that transition between a rocky to a gas planet, rather than just being in like an instantaneous switch like we have in the game at the moment. I mean, as soon as you add hydrogen, it will just instantly make it a gas world. But having some sort of transition between the two could be very interesting.
Yeah, well. Yes. I mean, that is definitely.
Because it kind of makes hybrid planets between the two, and gas dwarfs and stuff like that, which have been curated by modding the files, but actually being able to do it in game would be pretty spectacular, I'd say. But I mean, yeah, just an idea really, and a lot of people.
I would say that. I mean, that's kind of. I would also say that's like something that like is on our list. I would say that's like. Getting that to work in some ways actually is kind of a completely different feature from the mixed materials. Like those can like exist separately. And again, I'm very hesitant to make any sort of promises as to when any of this stuff is coming. The mixed materials we're definitely working on. Transitions between different kinds of objects is kind of a continuous thing we're working on very slowly. But yeah, I mean, all of that is, those are all very valid points and all things that I want to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really exciting. I mean, I can't wait to see what you guys have got in store this year with the development of the game. But anyways, moving on to the next question, because I mean, that was a massive discussion just about the first question. We've still got quite a lot to go. So the next one, this is actually from someone from Spain. So thanks from Spain. They put, will you improve the surface view and also the operation of magnetic fields of stars and planets. So I think what they mean by the surface view is either being able to sort of move around on the surface or have like an actual sky, because also when a planet has an atmosphere, as soon as you get close to the planet, the atmosphere just disappears. So I think what they're implying is like if you land on an object, could you see the atmosphere color in the sky instead of obviously the background in the simulation?
Well, I mean, so I'm like so optimistic about everything. I'm like, the short answer to every question is eventually. Like all of these are like legitimate things. Let's see. I mean, that's not like, I can't say that's like a super high priority for us, but like, yes, we've talked about doing better. Oh, what's the term? Atmospheric. I don't know. So, atmospheric scattering. So when like the light of a star shines through the atmosphere and you're on the surface. Yeah, I mean, this is something that like all modern video games, Grand Theft Auto 5 does it very beautifully, along with many others. The interesting trick about atmospheric scattering is there hasn't been much like, so it's like crazy complicated math, and there hasn't been much done. Like, there's not a super clear solution to what you do when you have multiple stars, because for every Earth-based game, they don't need multiple.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the short answer is, will we improve surface view? Yes. I mean, it's crazy long term, and this is like, don't look for this for years, but like long term, we would love to do kind of procedural surfaces, so that as you got closer to the surface, it like filled in kind of procedural kind of detail, so that getting that to work with our kind of variable, the fact that you can bombard the surface and change it, and now we have these surface editing tools, so that work at kind of a very low resolution. Kind of getting all that to work together will be a real challenge. But definitely. Short answer to will we improve the surface view? Yes. Oh, let's see. Magnetic fields of the planets and stars. I would love for that to like, again, be more tied in with the simulation. Like, it's kind of more of a visual effect.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change anything. I don't know if I've got a quick answer to that. I'm going to say I want to do something. It's not super clear what we're going to do or how, like, there's so many things, like, yes, I want to do it. I want to do everything. It's all, and it becomes this like challenge of prioritization. Well, what's the more important thing to do? So magnetic fields are, I would say, a lower priority feature, but I would, yes, I want to, but no promises.
You have to wait and see with that one, yeah. Right, moving on. So next up we've got, and this is an interesting one as well. Is there going to be a greenhouse effect mode where I can make my planets more like Venus? And I think this one's quite a good point, actually, because one thing I've noticed in the more recent versions of the game, it's quite difficult to actually get a planet to the temperature of Venus with like the greenhouse effect, and stuff like that. So I remember back in the day before surface grids came out, if you gave a planet, say, atmosphere pressure of 100 Earth, so 100 ATM, that was pretty much a guaranteed, like, it's going to be very hot. But if you do it in the game now, there isn't really much effect. So could you sort of clarify what's the sort of secret behind that?
Well, we were let's see. So the very next update that's coming out, dare I say next week? Certainly in the next few weeks. We've intended to get it up. We'll actually have an option for adjusting. It's kind of a temporary solution. Venus has like a number of simulated layers, and that property isn't exposed. So it's like Venus is kind of hard coded to have these additional atmospheric layers to get the heat correct, and it's not exposed in UI. So we're going to be exposing the number of atmospheric layers, which is totally a simulation. It's not really it's a kind of a disappointment. It's not the most exciting way to present that. And then that's kind of a temporary solution. So you will be able to either turn down the number of layers on Venus or turn up the number of layers on other planets. And then with that mixed materials thing I talked about earlier, once we add that, then we're probably going to get rid of this layers thing and like it'll be more wholly integrated and work better.
Being all combined together. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Wow.
But in the very next update, you'll have more control over like adjusting Venus or creating Venus, either turning Earth into something more like Venus, or making Venus not so hot. So there's, again, this is one of those like examples of a property that exists in the simulation that we had not exposed in the UI, and so nobody could find it, and it was confusing. So that will be rectified, kind of. So there'll be a temporary solution to rectify that in the next update, and then once mixed materials comes out, that will probably get overhauled again.
Okay. So. That's really cool, actually. Yeah, so Venus has had hidden secrets the entire time that hardly anyone knew about, eh?
Well, in the way that there was another, customizable great spots. Skipping ahead, customizable great spots for the gas giants. The great spot on Jupiter is literally kind of a hard-coded if Jupiter at a spot. So
if it has the name Jupiter, it will always spawn the spot. But as soon as you change the name and reboot the simulation, the great spot will disappear.
Yeah, I think it's literally a if Jupiter. So that is the last remaining. It was a little sloppy on our part to do this kind of hard-coded if this. We've had a number of those, and we've slowly gotten rid of those over the last couple of years.
I remember them. Like Venus, before you added atmosphere customization, Earth and Venus had cloud presets. So the only way to get them was by naming the object Earth or Venus to get white clouds, and obviously Venus used to have the red cloud effect as well. What went with it?
Yeah. So after this next update, this spot will be the last hard-coded Jupiter thing, or the kind of the last hard-coded effect. Yes, there are. I can't, the one idea would just literally be to add a checkbox for add a great spot. They're kind of then become all these customization things. It's unclear to me how much time we're going to give to customizable spots, given how it is a totally visual effect that has because it doesn't have any effect on the simulation at the moment.
Yeah, it's just a visual. Yeah.
But I think certainly just exposing the ability to turn on and off the spot so that it's not hard-coded and hidden away, that's probably coming sometime. But then how much additional customization we're going to give to that is unclear. But because there's, customization in general. The long-term plan is that you should be able to take any object, and by adjusting, this is something you can't do right now, and I kind of feel like it's a bit of an oversight on our part, but we're working on it. Is you should be able to take any object, and by adjusting the properties, turn it into any other object. So you should be able to drop down a random planet, and then by adjusting the textures, again, these are kind of it's like hidden properties that exist that haven't been exposed in the UI in the user interface to the end user. You should be able to adjust those properties to turn it into anything else. So, you could drop it down a random planet and then, go in and adjust, select elevation map Earth, color map Earth, and then set the mass and radius to be Earth. And now you actually have Earth. You have exactly the exact same planet that would have spawned if you'd spawned Earth originally. So that's the long-term plan. And with that ability to turn something into Earth or back, will just arise all kinds of other customization. So, the moment like you give a random planet these different random textures, and none of that is, that's all, that is not exposed either, but we are working on that. So that's coming.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Because that's, like you said, that's been one that people have been asking for as well, is customizable spots or storms, I should say, on the planets, which should be really, really cool as well. So I'd definitely be looking forward to seeing that at some point. But moving on as well to the next question. This probably all ties into what we've already discussed as well, and that is will the ability to add life on terrestrial planets. So
with mixed materials is a prerequisite of life simulation. So we'll probably come out with mixed materials, and then as a major, is that what we're going to call it? Probably. I don't know. Sometimes like the internal name that we call things, like once we get ready to actually ship the feature, we're like, is that what we're going to call it? Like, is that how we're going to like publicly describe the feature? Anyway, so I'm like, mixed materials, maybe. Anyway, so whatever we end up calling the mixed materials feature, and it may very well just be mixed materials. That, yeah, again, is a prerequisite for life simulation. So we'll probably ship mixed materials, and then in a future version, we'll add kind of very simplistic life simulation. And again, so like really simplistic. Like we're not talking about aliens that have spaceships and fly around, right? We're talking about like version 1 of life simulation is going to be just green algae growing in oceans or something, right? Like just like like kind of a super simplistic simulation of a single cell organism, and it can like kind of spread, and then likely that will make it look green, right? So and maybe we'll handle, I don't know if it's on the ocean versus on land, like maybe we'll do that differently. Kind of longer term aspiration for life simulation, and this wasn't explicitly, add life on terrestrial planets. So is being able to maybe, and this would be like a version 2 feature, or like kind of and by version 2 I mean version 2 of the life simulation feature, just kind of so not in the initial release of life simulation. What I think would be really fun to do, this is all kind of speculative a little bit too, so again, I should be careful about it's so fun to talk about, but I also don't want to like get anybody excited and like disappoint them when the feature never comes out.
Yeah.
But the hope is that maybe we'll do something with life simulation where you have maybe 2 kinds of life forms. One that is kind of simulates basically kind of a very simplistic simulation of plants and a very simplistic simulation of animals, whereas the plants absorb carbon dioxide and put out oxygen, and the animals do the reverse of that. And so and then once we have mixed materials where the atmosphere actually has these properties of carbon dioxide and oxygen, then you'll, depending on how much of the different life forms you'll have, you'll get that will actually cause the atmosphere to change, and then you could do crazy things. You'd be able to do a simulation of, like, what is it? The oxidation, like one of the extinction events where there was like so much oxygen in the atmosphere, or something like that. So so that's kind of like the long term. That's like one of the kind of like the long term plan for life simulation. So will you be able to add life on terrestrial planets? Yes, that is definitely a feature that we've been talking about for a long time, and mixed materials is a prerequisite for that.
Yeah, it sounds exciting stuff.
And there's so much exciting things to do with that. I think life simulation is going to be really fun. So
yeah, that sounds really, really cool. But yeah, moving on back to the world of gas giants now. So again, we've got another one here that I've seen probably for a good few years now, and that is, will there be a way to add atmospheres to gas giants?
I mean, really, gas giants have often been the forgotten, like the forgotten stepchild of planets. Like we spent so much time on terrestrial, Earth-like planets, and sometimes gas giants are like, oh yeah, does that new thing that we just added, does that also work on gas giants? So I mean, really, a gas giant should just already act like there's an atmosphere.
I mean, it's effectively all atmosphere, but I think what people are implying is just to have the little atmosphere haze to go with it.
Yeah. Okay. Probably. Yeah. I mean, we should. We haven't talked about it in a while, so I know that's been talked about in the past. I guess it's unclear to me where that is on the roadmap. But eventually. Yeah. But again, that's my answer to every question. Eventually, right?
Eventually.
The plan is, at the moment, the plan is there's no plan to work on any other project, right? The plan is to keep working on the Universe Sandbox indefinitely. I feel, like super lucky that sales continue to be very good. Sales are how we pay everybody on the team to continue to make the product better. We're we've been working on a mobile version, which, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that's taken forever, right? I mean, everybody's like, where's the mobile version?
Where's the mobile? That's one of the questions we've got. That was actually the next question on the list. Actually, is where is the mobile version? That's when is it going to release? Any ideas on that?
I mean, we have got it we've got it running on phones, so it is the full desktop experience on your phone. It is not a different version. It is so all of the same features in the desktop version are going to be on your phone, and it's also running the same UI. Actually, if you take the desktop version and shrink the window down, that is what the mobile version is going to look like. So you can already kind of
get a taster.
Yeah, I mean, but I would say the main reason why the mobile version isn't out yet is because there are still a handful of very large UI user interface challenges where you can open up all these panels and they overlap and it's confusing. And so we need much better handling of panels that open up and how they overlap, and like automatically closing some of them when other ones open. And that is a big job. And we have had we've actually struggled a little bit with. We've actually got a couple open positions for actually both a cross-platform developer and a UI engineer. Although interestingly, literally yesterday we made someone an offer on UI engineer, and then we've also got somebody else who's also doing some UI work for us, more kind of on contract work. So we actually now have 2 people working on UI. Anyway, so hopefully, so I mean, part of the reason we've struggled a little bit with staffing, or like people to do the work that's very mobile specific. So that's part of the reason for the delay. But hopefully that's so like, I mean, have we actively been working on the mobile version in the last 6 months? The answer is kind of no, unfortunately, other than all of the other improvements that we've made will be in the mobile version. The next big feature that's going to be coming out again in the next few weeks is spin fragmentation. So, and there's a community test build up right as we're recording this. There's a community test, so you can anyone can go check it out who has the Steam version. Anyway, that lets you like spin up planets. Anyway, that will be in the mobile version, right? So all of these improvements, everything we've been doing is making the mobile version better. But then some of the mobile specific challenges, we've not really had anyone to work on that. But that hopefully has changed here in the last few weeks. So so we've got 2 people now working on UI, and they're both kind of still ramping up. So so there's kind of the wandering answer to when is the mobile. So I guess the question actually was, when will the mobile version release? That is still unclear. We are very I mean, we are 100% committed to getting a mobile version out. We don't want to release it before it's ready. And there are still some like significant, but I think really interesting and really fun user interface challenges to like cramming all of this stuff into all of this into a small screen. So we want to make it work both on a phone in both portrait and landscape mode, and on a tablet. Tablet's easy because you have so much more screen real estate.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. But so we honestly still don't know when it's coming, but that it is of I guess it's fair to say that it will soon again be under active development. And I don't know. It is definitely in the works. So yeah.
Sounds like exciting stuff, I have to say. I mean, yeah, all of that on the phone, all of the whole computer experience on the phone. I mean, that's going to be fantastic once that that comes.
It's already running pretty well. So I mean, it's going to be really cool, and it is really fun to have it in your pocket. So
yeah, I mean that'd be. I'd like to have a go at that during my lunch break at work or something. Have a little play around, have a practice for a video later that day or something. So that could be really interesting. But yeah, moving on to the next question as well. And this one was pretty bizarre, but I thought I'd saw it in the comments. So I thought, you know what? Let's throw it in. And that is, would it eventually be possible to manually turn geometric 3D shapes in the objects menu into coloured and terraform crazy shaped planets like cubed and toroidal planets? I hope I said that right. So basically, objects that are not spheres. So would there be any plans for that? I mean, it's a pretty crazy question, but that's what someone's asked.
you can take those shapes and make them the size and mass of a planet, but I guess
I think they mean about atmosphere customization, adding oceans.
Yeah.
And all that. I mean, this seems a bit crazy to me.
I mean, it's an interesting question, and it certainly is. It is something we could do. I'm going to say that's probably not. That would be. It would. Yeah, probably to get that working would probably just be a strange amount of work for relatively little. For this really kind of weird side payoff.
Yeah.
And and then the other reality, and I mean, because we certainly support like doing magic things, like you can give a planet a negative mass, which doesn't actually exist in reality, but the math works out. If something has a negative mass, that then causes gravity to repulse instead of attract.
Yeah.
So we just support letting the user do some kind of crazy, fantastical things that aren't based in reality. If you actually had a square planet, it would, because it was, assuming it was large enough, it would turn back into a sphere
just
from
again. Yeah, exactly.
Which would also be something you'd have to like add support for. So I think the short answer is probably not. I mean, it's a fun question. It's fun to think about,
definitely
how that would work, but probably. I mean, if we just run out, 5 years from now, if we run out of ideas,
there you go. There's one.
I'm gonna go with probably not on that one, but super fun one. I mean, I love, I am all about letting creating this realistic simulation that lets you do, but you can like create crazy setup, crazy fantastical scenarios, and then watch what happens. And that is totally in line with like that philosophy. But I think it would be so much work to properly support square planets that it kind of just doesn't. It would be way more work than the payoff. So
kind of reminds me of the cold star as well. Like you said, negative mass. Well, we've also got the negative star of luminosity, so it emits cold light, which is I've just got that on screen at the moment as well, just to show everyone watching. But yeah, the cold star. Pretty forgotten about feature, I have to say. You don't see many people mention it or send pictures of it, but it is there. Have some fun with it, people. It is a lot of fun to mess around with. So
and totally not a real thing, right? Yeah, it's like it's literally. But so we're I think we literally mark it as we literally call it magic. And
magic
part of the
cold
reason
star, yeah.
And the reason we're using the word magic is to kind of like suggest that like this is not based. This is not based on science at all. There's no, this is not a real thing. But, it's a negative luminosity, right? So like, it's, again, in the way that the cold laser also is, there is no such thing as a cold, like a laser that actually sucks out heat. That does not exist.
Beams cold.
But I mean, the math works where you can literally subtract temperature from an object.
Yeah.
But there is no, that is not based on reality. So
I mean, again, that's what I've got on screen here. Negative luminosity. The description is switches the luminosity negative, resulting in a star that actively cools objects around it. This does not exist in reality, but is mathematically possible.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty fun one there, and there's a good example of that as well. So moving on to the next question: can you make particles come together to form planets and stars, or moons as well? So basically, form celestial objects.
That is, yes. Oh my gosh, that's been required. That is.
So can you naturally form planets effectively?
Yeah, I mean that is on the list. That might not. I mean, something that we did initially was this kind of distinction between different types of objects. So like this explicit planet versus a particle, and and particles, planets can do things that particles can't, and like planets have trails, particles don't, and there's no way to give a trail to a particle, at least currently. And so kind of blurring the distinction between these two hard-coded types is something we're also slowly working on. And so that, I would say that is eventually coming. Also, yeah, if you're going to ask about, yeah, I mean, something else that we've talked about doing was SPH, which is smooth particle hydrodynamics, which is a kind of simulating planets as fluids, basically. And actually, if in reality, when you collide two planets in the universe sandbox, I mean, the simulation is dramatically simplified from what would really happen.
Yeah.
Part of that is because just the computational expense, like the number of, trying to simulate this in real time with thousands and thousands of individual objects, which is what would really happen. I mean, in reality, it'd be billions and trillions, right?
Oh, yes.
But anyway, and that's a real challenge, getting that to work smoothly. But and that's something we thought we were going to have out sooner. Ran into some problems. Let's see. Yeah. So that, well, and it looks like now it's unclear if SPH is what we're going to implement, or kind of a different, that's very similar effect. That's more of a, smooth particle hydrodynamics is like a particle-based system, and like we're actually exploring maybe actually doing a kind of hybrid grid particle system. That's kind of all behind the scenes and doesn't really matter, but I mean, it'll provide a very similar, you would look at this and think it might be that it was smooth particle hydrodynamics, but in fact it's using a different method that's actually more computationally like stable. It's less like that's a problem. If the time step is too high, then the whole thing can explode when it wouldn't really in reality. Anyway, so that system, whatever system we end up implementing, that should allow particles to come together to form planets and stars. So I would say, yeah, that was a very long-winded way of saying that is a feature that is definitely on our roadmap. Although again, no promises as to when that's coming, but we are, yeah. And I'm very sorry that if I had known how things were going to work out, we definitely would not have teased that. Yeah. I mean, there's the problem about just, like talking about features in development, right? Because you talk about them, people get excited. Mobile also has taken longer than we expected. I mean, and one of the reasons why I've been very careful not to ever give dates. I mean, I even said, what I said, our next update is coming out in the next couple of weeks. I mean, the reality is it was supposed to come out last week, and then we were like, okay, well, it's definitely going to be out this week, and then we ran into some more problems, and so now it's going to be, because we never made the promise, no one's too, counting on. No one's really counting on that specific date. And the same way with mobile, we've also been pretty careful not to say, I want to say it's going to be this year, but gosh, and I really hope it is this year, but I don't really know. I mean, there's still some really big challenges ahead of us. So, again, when's this kind of SPH or similar system going to be out? I don't know. We are definitely working on it. So, I shouldn't say we're not actively working on it yet. At the moment, I'd say we've kind of actually taken a step back, and it's like, let's get the current collision system. Let's get that work. There's too many obvious problems with that, and so we're like, let's slow down a little bit and let's really fix that and make that system work really well. The current collision system. The next update that I keep mentioning is going to have some pretty major bug fixes to that system. 2 Earths colliding. Well, that's actually the community test. So you can go try it right now. But the community test version, when 2 Earths collide, it is now a symmetrical. Finally, it is a symmetrical collision. 2 Earths colliding has been wonky for years, and so that finally has been fixed. Very excited by that. So we're kind of getting just kind of like trying to fix some of the kind of the core fundamentals before we, because it's so exciting to work on new stuff, but like also it's like let's get the core system working better. So that's what we're doing right now. But then once that's, and I feel like we're close to maybe being able to kind of put that on pause again and work on this new crazy system. Anyway, it's unclear what the timeline is. So I mean, the other wild idea, and I dare I say this out loud because like we haven't committed to it, but something that we've talked about that I think would be really interesting is when two planets come together. I mean, again, right? Two Earths come together. They're spheres. They're perfect spheres all the way, and even while they collide with each other, they continue to be perfect spheres. And in reality, they would, as they got close together, they would like start to deform. Like there'd be enough, or they would like kind of almost become like oblate or slightly oval, or even just Saturn, because of its spin, is like 10% wider than it is tall, right? And that's because of the spin. So adding, doing some very simplistic oblique, I think that's the term, like allowing the planets to not be, but to be kind of like stretched spheres instead of perfect spheres. That's an idea we've been kicking around. That which then has nothing to do with particles coming together to form planets and stars, right? But that's something that we might explore also for unclear. We're not sure where we are on that. But gosh, dare I say that out loud? Because like we haven't really committed to that. But that's something we've talked about that I think might be really cool and really might. Yeah, I mean, it would like, so interestingly enough, the is it Cassini that collides with Saturn?
That's correct.
Yeah, so the simulation of that, we actually artificially have to adjust the radius of Saturn, because using the proper telemetry data for Cassini, it didn't collide. And so anyway, and it's because Saturn is technically squished and we're not simulating that. So
and that actually leads to one of the other questions about, would you add oval-shaped objects into the game? So slightly non-spherical objects.
Oh, well, what I just said. I mean,
that leads on.
I want to. It's unclear if we're going to. So, maybe. but man, I agree that would be so cool, and kind of like really would really help make the simulation more accurate. It would make collisions and interactions between objects more accurate. So,
definitely. Yeah, that'd be fantastic to hopefully see one day. So fingers crossed, I guess, for us.
Well, the next feature we're adding is the spin fragmentation. So you can spin up planets so fast that they spin apart. As you spun a planet up, it would kind of like flatten out like a disk. But we're not simulating that flattening yet. Yeah. So, what are those? The crazy neutron stars, right? Are spinning like it.
Very quick.
And I think they're also flatter or more pancake-like. They're not really spheres, I believe. And so that would, so there's all these examples of like reasons we should support that.
I mean, it's the same with some of the big stars as well. I can't remember which star it is, but I know it's one of the blue stars, but it actually isn't a proper sphere because it spins really fast. Is it Spicer or Regulus? It's one of the blue stars, but it spins so quick.
Any object that spins is not a
absolutely.
Is not. I mean, even our sun, I think, is a little oblique, right? Just because of the light spin that it. Jupiter, Saturn, even Earth, right, is slightly wider at the equator because of the spin, and we're not. Yeah, and that's just missing from our simulation at the moment.
Yeah, so that would be pretty cool as well. So change of subject. A nice quick question. Now this one would be: Is there any plans to add more? Also we have the human objects at the moment. Like we've got the Cassini probe, the Voyager probe. Is there any plans to add the International Space Station or the Hubble Space Telescope into the game?
Hubble is coming in the next update. I think that.
Ooh, okay.
Or is it? Well, if it's not in this update, it's in the next one. We literally have the object is in the. I can't now remember if it's been released, if it's in the community test build or not. But that one's coming. So Hubble definitely. And if not this update, the next one, and then ISS. Yes, I mean eventually. I mean, I guess part of the hesitation on adding these objects, are another crazy long-term thing that we've been working on is better rigid body collisions. So at the moment, all collisions are everything in Universe Sandbox is a sphere. And so if you take, two dice, and dice are cubes, if you collide those, they currently collide as if they're spheres and like merge together in this weird way that it's not at all what would really happen. And so we're working on adding proper collisions for non-spherical objects. We've got that working. There's still quite a bit to do before that's releasable. And then once that's working, then the plan is to kind of start adding kind of simplistic spaceship stuff. So like thrusters and being able to kind of connect objects together. Yeah. And so in some ways, like ISS would make more sense if it was a series of interconnected objects that you could connect together. So yeah, we might also just add it in the meantime, and then like replace the object with something else in the future. I don't know. It's kind of like anything we do with like rocket ships or spaceships right now is like probably going to be changed in the future. So, but yeah, Hubble. So the short answer is, eventually on the ISS, and Hubble is coming soon. So. Yeah. And cool. Then we've got crazy long-term plans for spaceships in general. So
yeah, that sounds fantastic. I mean, speaking of spaceships, I think that would be also a good opportunity for the space shuttle to make its way in as a possible object as well. That's just one I've just thought up right now. I mean, yeah, the space shuttle could be a cool addition as well.
I mean, once we have, in some ways, like. All the any sort of what we call human scale objects, these kind of smaller objects that aren't perfect spheres. In some ways, like it's just not that interesting to add them. You just can't do anything with them right now. I mean, they're kind of cool to look at, but until they like properly collide or interact properly, it's just like it's kind of not so interesting to add. And then anything we add now would have to kind of be like changed in the future, and so there's kind of like there's not a whole lot of motivation for us to add stuff currently, but Hubble is coming. So
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the human objects personally for my size comparison videos, but that's really the only use I have for them. So you are right about they don't do much, but they are cool to look at, of course. So that's all good.
Well, we're working on a feature that will make them way more interesting to play around with.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it sounds really exciting. Yeah, awesome. Moving on as well. So this question, and I mean a lot of people ask this as well, and that is there going to be an update entirely focused around bug fixing, as the community, they're claiming the community really wants it. As you've probably seen in your feedback page, there is a lot of bugs that fly around the game. So would you consider a whole update just for bug fixing? Because I mean, I've encountered bugs obviously when I film my videos, and obviously a lot of people share them around as well. Some of them are quite funny, but other ones can be a bit annoying. And I'm sure that's obviously the same with any game or program really. But yeah, would you have any plans for just an update that has a lot of bug fixes in it?
I mean, I think we have done well. I mean, in some ways, like everything we're doing kind of feels like a slow bug. This next update adds spin fragmentation, but also has a bunch of fixes for collisions. Mixed material. The mixed materials feature that I mentioned earlier is you could argue is a bug fix for our kind of poor our like lack of handling of materials. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that we're gonna like, we sometimes have like what we call kind of a bug week where everybody on the team kind of just focuses on bug fixes. So I don't know that we're gonna pause it. I mean, it's kind of everything we're doing is a bug. I don't know. It's kind of just how you would label it. I don't know that we're gonna. We don't have any plans for this is a bug fix update. Yeah, I mean, they're just kind of continuously bug fixes all the time. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the next update is going to be spin fragmentation and better equal size body collisions, and then actually the next update after that, spoiler alert, is constellations. So
Ooh. Hoo, hoo, hoo.
we're finally adding support for constellations. But then, and that actually has been, I mean, it's relatively pretty simple. You just open up all this, you just put the stars in the sky and connect them with lines.
There you go.
But then we've actually run into it's like, oh, but when you have 700 stars in the simulation, you have some really serious performance problems.
Yeah.
So we've actually been spending a lot of time on performance and so constellations, again, this is why we don't make promises about when stuff's coming out, because it always takes longer than we want it to. So constellations was supposed to be out already. But then we just ran into all these performance problems, and so we're like, oh, well, let's go rewrite our composition system to make star simulation faster. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, when there's 700 labels on the screen and you're dragging your mouse around, there's actually like a 5 to 10 frame performance hit. That's been fixed. I don't know if I'm not sure when that fixes. That fix may not be until constellations, but so there actually are going to be, so probably more exciting than the actual constellation feature, which isn't that interactive and doesn't really do that much from a simulation perspective, are just these like all these back-end fixes for performance. So yeah, I mean, we are committed to improving and bug fixing, even if it's not labeled a bug fix update. So
sounds good. Yeah.
Cool.
So I always see in the patch notes there's always bits and bobs that are getting done behind the scenes as well. But yeah, anyways, moving on. So another one, going back to sort of irregular shaped objects. This is one about Mars's moons. Now this has been one that's been going around for a while. So Mars's moons, Phobos, Deimos. Would you plan to have those as like almost irregular type shapes at all?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, there'd be two ways to that, right? There'd be like, we could, if we added so the kind of rigid body physics update that will let cubes collide properly. Conceivably, we could replace those models with, I haven't thought about this really, but so yeah, we could either just like replace them with an irregularly shaped model. That would be one way to. That's not going to let them simulate properly. Or if we added, and again, not planned, but maybe the kind of oblique objects, like that would probably be the better way to try to do that. So they might not still be the perfectly correct shape, but they might be better shaped, more accurate. So let's give that one a maybe, and that's going to require future tech that we don't have done yet.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So next question, another one about the moons of the planets, and this one is, would you have any plans? And we were actually discussing this the other day in our call as well, and that is textures for the moons of Uranus and Triton around Neptune. Is that the only real major moons left in the game that don't have textures? Because obviously you guys have got all of the Galilean moons around Jupiter, you've got all of Saturn's major moons, they've all got custom unique textures, but Uranus and Neptune, their moons are still obviously the just generic spawned objects that you get in the game. So would you have any plans to try and give those guys some of their textures based off real life pictures?
Yeah, that's kind of just an oversight.
A nice sort of easy one, I guess. I mean, adding the texture is probably a lot easier than simulating all of the performance and stars, constellations, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's kind of an oversight. Yeah, I think we literally wrote up a task to go add the Triton texture. Yeah, are there other moons? I don't know. Let us know. Let us know which moons there exist photographs of that we haven't properly implemented.
I mean, for Neptune, it's mainly just Triton. I mean, that's the only proper major moon around there. But then also Uranus, you've got Miranda, Ariel, Oberon, Titania, and Umbriel. Those, we all have pictures of those guys, and they're effectively the major moons of Uranus. I mean, it mainly is just all of those that I've just mentioned that are the only ones I can think of that would really need any sort of texture upgrade. So it mainly is just those guys. I mean, all the other ones, they're the only major proper spherical ones. Everything else is just little asteroids. I mean, Triton is the only one around Neptune that is a proper moon with a spherical shape.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just that's a well. Other than the fact that like often these photos of the surface are incomplete, and so we would either need, we would need to like kind of do an artistic interpretation of the rest of it. But yeah, we should do that. That's compared to everything else we've talked about. That's a fairly easy one. So
yeah. I mean, just sort of complete the set of the moons, really, as well.
Exactly.
Just have the whole complete set of all the solar system's major moons. I mean, it mainly is just those guys left, really.
If we keep bugging us about that, we will get it. I promise we'll get to that eventually. So
sounds good.
Remind me
if
if
we just
don't...
like one of the mini updates, like you've done in the past. I remember when you added like Ganymede, Callisto's moon textures in, because they were added a long time after Io and Europa. I mean, they were just like in miniature updates. I think it was like update 17.2 or 3, where you just added those in as like a little upgrade on obviously the main update you already released. In theory, it could be something like that, just a little, and then they probably could just come with like performance updates and bug fixes and just stuff like that, but also just a bit of cheeky new content in there as well. Stuff like that, really. I mean, that's what you guys have done in the past, so maybe you could go back to go do that again as well. In theory, I mean, that could be an idea. Yeah. Cool. Moving on as well. Now, this is one I've always wondered as well, and this is one that one of the guys in the comments asked, and that is, why don't brown dwarfs give light or heat? So why don't they have a habitable zone effectively?
That is also something we've talked about recently. We've kind of a limitation of the way it got coded a long time ago, that stars are the only objects that have light and heat, and so we're in part of this kind of like unification of all object types that I mentioned, that will the ability for, I mean, really, actually, ideally, I want to be able to select any sort of object and then literally add this object emits light, kind of an override switch to it.
Okay.
Which is what you do, kind of crazy, weird things, or
you
even
make some planets that emit light and stuff. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, a hot Jupiter, right, should also, a super hot planet would also actually be emitting some amount of heat. So that is definitely on the roadmap.
That'd be really
as part of this kind of like object unification. So that's going to be a while, and that is a pretty, it's a little bit like replacing the plane's engines while it's in flight, but that's kind of what we're working on. So that's good. That is months and months away, dare I say, even this year. But that is definitely a problem that we're aware of, and this larger overhaul, which also is so we use the Unity 3D, the Unity 3D engine, which is one of the main. There's like Epic Unreal Engine for if you're making a game or 3D software, there's a handful of 3D engines you can use. Epic's Unreal is one of the main ones, and then Unity is basically the other big one. And we use Unity, and a system, something that some tech that they've come out with is called DOTS. It stands for data oriented tech stack, and it is a collection of different behind the scenes things that lets you write code that runs much faster. And anyway, we are changing our code to use this new system, and that also actually should give us some really nice performance increases. Again, this is maybe a year from now. And along with that is we're kind of unifying all of our object types, which should allow us to then do hot planets and hot, half stars or whatever. Yeah. So
that'd be really cool.
Brown dwarfs. Yeah.
Really, really cool to see eventually as well. But moving on to the next question as well. So this is one I've had just been curious about, but as time's gone on in the game, and I actually saw this when I did my History of Universe Sandbox series, where I went all the way back to the earliest version that I can access, which was I think it was update 11, Alpha 11. But as time slowly went on, opening the menu and all the buttons, it started to take longer and longer every update. So do you know the reason for that? Because I've always found that one quite interesting. Is the newer the version of the game, the slower the add object menu is?
That is yeah. I mean, I've noticed that like I know the open panel will sometimes you'll hit open and then it'll kind of freeze up for a second or
Yeah.
two and then the panel will open. That is literally something we talked about with the UI developer that we just hired. So that was literally a question we talked to them about yesterday. It is I am not good. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's so slow. And we've talked about like, yeah, are there ways to mitigate that or do more background loading or at least display the panel and then load in the objects? So that is something we are aware of, and I'm not sure. I don't know why. That's a good that there is a reason, and I don't know what it is.
So it's a mystery. Okay, interesting.
But it's something that is definitely, but it's also one of those things that's like, okay, should we spend, should we literally throw, put someone on that task, and it might take a full week of development time, right?
Yeah.
Is it worth, or should they go work on some new feature, right? So this is like kind of the continuous battle that we have in development. It's like, should we fix this bug or should we have this new feature? Should we go solve this like slight delay that is kind of really annoying and would make it feel better? Or, should we go implement some other thing, so,
Yeah.
But yeah, that is definitely, I am definitely aware of that. But I am not sure why. So.
Okay, interesting stuff. Next up, now this is one I've seen a lot as well, and that is, will stellar evolution ever come to Universe Sandbox? So could stars eventually evolve from a main sequence to a red giant? Stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, there's kind of a system in there for that, and it's just like really broken.
Because there was a simulation for it that I remember from years ago, where it has the sun like getting bigger.
Well, yeah, I mean the solution to that is the code that got written was, yeah, all that code needs to be thrown away and rewritten. I think what we might do, another one of these, like remove Erica, our kind of astrophysicist developer. She has been working on some fixes to just make stars less buggy.
Yeah.
But that might require throwing out the existing stellar evolution code, which doesn't work that well anyway. So, it's like, I think it'd probably be better. And then later we might, that might be like a month of developer time. So, it's just kind of like, should she work on that or should she work on the multi-materials feature, right? So it's like, which one do you want first? Again, it's all of software development is trade-offs like this. So, it's like, I want to do it all, but then there's even with, how many developers do we have? There's like 12 of us, but not all of us are developers, 8, I don't know. Even with 8 developers, it's like everything just takes forever, which is just the nature of software development. And the other interesting thing is, even as you add more people to the team, now you just have like more complex communication challenges. And so sometimes it does, like you add additional people and it doesn't necessarily make it feel faster. But again, that's just like teams in general. I'm not complaining or like, I love my team. Really happy with how everything's going, but also just everything takes forever. Everything is so much slower than I wish it was. And there aren't magical solutions to this. It's just, software development is hard. Communication on a remote, and everybody's remote. We don't have a central office. Communication. Well, we've been remote, since the beginning. So like we were remote before it was cool to be remote, pre-pandemic. But it's just hard. So. Man, well, what was the question? So, still evolution. Eventually, I mean, yeah. Short answer is we want to do. We had done it. It didn't work very well. We might end up actually kind of removing some of the current features or some of the current support for that, but then come back to it later. But that might be not until after mixed materials and after life simulation.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah.
But that's all maybe. Again, I'm making no promises. Well, I get kind of am, I guess, but I want to be careful not to make promises that anybody's like, a year from now, they're like, you said that this feature was going to be out by this date. And I'm like,
Yeah.
So, and everything takes longer than I wish it would. I wish I could just snap my fingers and solve all these problems, but it's harder than that. So,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, next question, moving on now. So, any plans to add active black holes in the game? So that would include like black holes of all the jets and stuff, bits like that. So obviously the ones we have in the game right now, they'd probably be described more as unactive black holes because they're basically all just blacked out and dark. But obviously a more active black hole would have material around it. So would you have any plans to add like more of an active black hole into the game?
Yeah, I mean, we could add this. We could like add a random disk that just looks fake, but like that seems really uninteresting to me. You kind of need the particles to interact. So, I mean, again, it's one of these like, is this the most important feature for us to do next, or should we do all these other things? I would say that we might kind of get active black holes automatically once some of these other features, like once this kind of object unification and particles are able to interact with each other better, that you might then just, because what is it? It's a whole bunch of like material that's like, interacting, going so fast and smashing into each other that it glows, right? Glows hot. So that might just eventually come with future updates, and then you'll literally just kind of like add a little material and it'll just start glowing. So active black holes may come in the future via other features. I guess, no plans to work on that immediately. But I mean, yes, I would love, cool idea, but I would say lower priority, but might happen eventually, almost, because of other features that we do.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty interesting stuff. Next up, we've got another question. So, are you aware of the bug where planets go inside a star and don't get destroyed? So they can sort of like go inside stars and then come out the other side. Have you seen that glitch before? 'Cause that's one I've actually seen as well.
Unclear. If somebody's got good repro steps, and by that, like if somebody knows, like, here is the exact thing to do, and if you do this, it happens every time. Like, when it's a bug that has a very clear reproduction steps, then it becomes quite easy to solve. It's possible that some of our new collision improvements that are coming in the next update might fix that. I don't know. Certainly, let us know if that still is happening.
Yeah,
that shouldn't happen. But I'm not personally aware of that specific issue.
Okay, because I mean, this is all just going off a guessing game, but I think it usually happens when you've got a system with lots of orbits and you start to increase the size of your star and stuff like that. So I think it's when you start to muck around with star stats, and as you said, stars are quite buggy. And I know that from experience as well. But yeah, stars do tend to be quite buggy, and sometimes I think once they do get buggy, this weird things can happen when you try and collide stuff with them.
Okay.
So I'm just having a little play of it right now, seeing if I can get any weird stuff. And yeah, I've just spawned 3 Jupiters around the sun, and the sun has suddenly lost half of its radius, and now it's just got really large again. It's very, very strange the way stars work. They are very, very bizarre. So yeah, but like you said, hopefully we can see some of the some fixes to that. But I think a big issue with the stars is whenever they consume like cloud particle material, they really do muck around with the radius and mass of stars, I've noticed, and it usually is clouds of material that do it. I've noticed. So, for instance, you could throw an object into a star, and then when that creates material loads of collision fragments, when those collision fragments eventually hit the star, it can cause some very, very strange scenarios. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean that is all stuff. Yeah, that should not be happening. I want to fix that. I guess it's a little unclear to me what the problem is, or will some of these other things we're working on going to fix that. Again, clear reproduction steps for these things are, and maybe there's existing simulations that already demonstrate that. But I mean, it's like one of those things that nobody's pointed at and said, let's fix this now. So, but I don't know. Let us know if we haven't. I don't know. Yeah, remind us about that one.
Yeah.
So if we haven't fixed it,
quite an interesting one. Yeah. Next up, we've got now this is quite a nice simple one, but could you make a change to the menus of stars to show which spectral type the star is? So, for instance, if it's like a G-type star or an A-type star, like could you have like a little piece of text in the star menu saying what type of star it is?
Yeah, is that all? How do those categories? I'm not super familiar with how those categories. Are those categories like super well defined? I mean, if it's just literally
I
a
believe they
lookup.
are. It's usually, I think it usually comes down to mass, luminosity, bits and bobs like that. Like the sun, for instance, is a G-type star. Currently, but I believe obviously if it's that's also, you could also class it as a yellow dwarf. So, for instance, you could either class stars like the sun as yellow dwarfs or a G-type star, or you could class smaller stars like the sun as red dwarfs or orange dwarfs, things like that.
Yeah, that would be a fair, because we literally just added like kind of that little tagline underneath the names of, like this is a items, planet. So that's something we could add to.
That could be added to like the actual menu of the object when it's actually spawned in the game.
Yeah, because that's just also basically all just like kind of a read-only.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just looked that up. Yeah, that would be fairly true.
Just like a nice little feature, I think, and some of the guys suggested that in the in the comments of this video as well. So that could be or the comments of the video I asked about the questions. So yeah, I think that could be quite a nice little one. I think that's a good comment actually. The person who submitted that put actually. So yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Next up, we have got how are particle simulations doing? So I guess this is just covering over what you've already mentioned about the collision particles and stuff. So do you want to elaborate a bit more on that again?
Yeah, just the short version. Particles don't necessarily interact. The particles are kind of a distinctly different type than planets, which do, and we're slowly working on kind of unifying all of this so that there aren't these explicit differences, and plus kind of in the far future adding this kind of completely new collision method, something SPH like, but maybe different than that, but basically what everyone, when we say SPH and like, oh, that's what we want, I mean, it's something very similar, but just a technically different method. So I would say it is fair to say that is improving particle simulation is in active development, but is something not to expect that, I don't know, it's probably not it's not going to be something you're going to see for a while, but we are fair to say that it is in active development, but slow. It's going to be slow. So, and yes, I agree. Particle simulations are sometimes disappointing. So, we're like, oh, that didn't work exactly like I should, or they're not colliding, or what's happening here. So, in the works, but don't expect any changes for a long time.
Okay. Next up, we have got. This is quite a technical one. So someone asked, will Universe Sandbox, since it operates under Mac OS, be ported over to iPad, which is the only thing it will be limited to 6 gigabytes. So I think that's referring to like the mobile version that we may see eventually.
Yeah, the mobile version will definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've got it running on my iPad right now. So yes, it will when the mobile version is out. Let me see. It is. Yeah, once the iOS version is released, it almost certainly will work on both iPhone and iPad at launch. So will it work on? And it actually kind of has nothing to do with the M1, or at least that doesn't really, because we use Unity, which is the 3D engine we use. It has support. The really cool thing about Unity is you write the code once, and then you're able to compile it on all these different platforms. You're able to say, now make me a Windows version, a Mac version, a Linux version, an Android version, an iOS version, and then it kind of just behind the scenes like figures out all this technical stuff. It's not quite that easy. Like there are still a lot of like very specific things we have to do for these different versions. So it's not, but Yes, once the mobile version is out, the iPad there almost certainly will be an iPad version. Yeah.
Sounds great. Next up, we're actually getting to the end of the questions now. So this is one actually to do with modding the game, or what was available in modding. That is, when will we be able to make planet tints, texture changing, and more than 100% cloud coverage and opacity in the game? So you know like the color tint option, that's been exclusive to file modding pretty much since the beginning of time. So would there be any plans to add like texture changes or like being able to tint planets into the game's customization itself?
I would. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always like this is something we could just add right now, but it wouldn't. That mixed materials feature that I mentioned earlier, which is going to be a really major change to how we handle atmospheres, that likely will come with some additional changes to how the atmospheres look and behave. So maybe then, and that's certainly, we definitely also kind of just generally on the list is like, again, just better customization of objects in general. Like there are too many properties that exist for objects that are not exposed in the UI and therefore are not usable, easily user changeable. So, I don't know that we've talked about any of that specifically, but I would say yes. I mean, I can't see why we wouldn't want to do any, why we wouldn't eventually want to support all of that. So I guess it's unclear to me when that's going to happen, but maybe with mixed materials, and then we also just kind of have those like broad changes to customization in general that we want to do. So eventually,
yeah.
Is the answer.
Actually, just a side thing as well. Going back to the one about planets not getting destroyed in stars, I've just found a way to replicate it. It's all about shrinking objects into stars. Now, I've got this all recorded, so when this video comes out, I'll just show you the exact moment where I'm doing it, and you can sort of check it out as well. But all I've done is I've gone into the Saturn, Jupiter, Moon, Earth simulation with the sun, shrunk the system down, and yeah, I've got Jupiter on screen right now going inside the sun and coming out the other side. And it's all the sun keeps like glitching out and stuff. So yeah, hopefully that footage will prove useful in fixing that mysterious bug. So yeah, I'll forward you over the time once this all comes out.
Very cool.
It's very, very strange. I'm just looking at it now actually, and yeah, it's
when a bug is 100% reproducible, then it usually becomes quite trivial to solve.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I'm just going to do a third experiment just to see if I can replicate it again. But yes, a pretty weird one that. But anyways, moving on to the next question. While I'm doing that, so when will you add Sedna's unused texture? Now that's one I didn't even know there was an unused texture for Sedna, but this person who commented this seems to think there's an unused texture for Sedna. So is that the case? Is there a hidden Sedna texture in the game?
Not that I'm aware of. There isn't a photo of that planet, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've never. I think that Sedna, that dwarf planet, is very far away. So
yeah, it's possible that like somebody added one and then we never hooked it up, or they made it up and it was like, well, and then we ended up like moving to just kind of more randomized textures. I kind of don't remember. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not like some like intentional secret or something. Yeah. It's possible that it's a texture that got added, and then we're like, actually, let's do this other thing, and then nobody ever bothered to delete it.
Okay, so, interesting. So there could be a hidden Sedna texture lying around somewhere. Then that's really cool.
Yeah.
Pretty mysterious hidden secret there.
I can do a search here of the. Oh yeah, there is a Sedna diffuse texture.
Oh, is there? Oh, there is a hidden text. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, okay.
But it's just a fake. It's just like an artistic. It's not actually Sedna's surface. It's just a artist representation. I think that's why we removed it, because it was clearly not real.
Yeah.
And So yeah, we probably should have deleted it. I don't know. Maybe once we like have these more. I mean, we really shouldn't even call it Sedna because it's not. Again, it's all artist made, and it's all artist fantasy. So.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a version of Sedna in my game right now, which I was given to by one of the modders. So I'm guessing I'm guessing what I'm looking at right now is probably the texture you're talking about. So, I mean, maybe
it's like,
it is. Maybe
super
it is.
red with some very clear, pretty looking craters. Oh, the other problem with this texture is it's
got little bits.
It almost
of blue
feels like
in
it's lit. It's got like shading on it. It's like it's in a way that like you don't actually want the texture to have shadows on it. You want the shadows to be created dynamically in game. So there's there's probably kind of problems with this texture anyway. Like this isn't really a good texture to use to get really realistic results. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so because this is one I've got on screen right now. It's one that I was given to you by one of the modders. So maybe this is the actual one. Maybe it's a different one. I mean, I have no idea.
Probably is. Yeah. I can't see it. I'm not seeing your screen, but probably. Yeah. So yeah.
Interesting. Next up, they also asked, is there a way to make cold stars permanent? So I think they're referring to when you save a simulation with a cold star and then you reopen it, it's back to a regular star again.
Oh, that would be a bug. We should, so that should, we should fix that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, we're at the very end of the questions now. So, could we have a feature to increase the amount of city lights? So like like with galaxies, there's a way you can turn up the amount of stars in a galaxy. Could there be a way to do that with cities?
I mean, it would just be a matter of us prioritizing the ability to. I mean,
so just have more dots, basically.
I mean, because there's like, there's like there's like a randomized feature now, but I guess it doesn't. Yeah, like if you want to create a planet that's entirely covered by cities, like something out of sci-fi where it's like a city planet. You really can't do that. That would just be a matter of us going in and adding the ability to do that, or turning up the slider. Or we could. I don't know. I don't know that nobody's mentioned that recently. So,
so I'm just having a little play of the Galaxy one where you can increase the star count, and also it makes it a lot brighter in your face. I think maybe like this version of that for city lights could be.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be possible idea as well. But yeah, there we are, everyone. So that brings it to the end of this interview. That is all the questions that I got from the video where you guys commented, and also I threw some of my own questions in there as well. But that is it. That is the whole interview. So I'd like to thank you for coming on. I mean, it's been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Hope everyone enjoying it has enjoyed it. And I think it's really cool we've been able to do this. And I really hope you've enjoyed it, Dan. I think it's been a lot of fun. It's been great.
Universe Sandbox is my favorite thing to talk about. So this has been a lot of fun.
I'm obviously a very, very passionate fan of the game as well. I mean, it's great to talk to the brains behind it in theory. So really cool. Really enjoyed talking to you there. And everyone watching, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And if you've got any feedback and what you think about it, just let us know down below in the comments. And it'll be pretty interesting to see what you think. So I hope you've enjoyed all of the questions that we've asked. I tried to get as many down as possible that you guys commented, so apologies if I did miss any, but I got the majority. I pretty much got all the majority of the ones that I thought were appropriate when adding them to the question list. So, and there you go, really. I mean, I hope you've enjoyed that. But again, Dan, a massive thank you for joining. Sorry, I just cut you off there.
Oh, you're fine. Oh, I was going to add thank you for making all the videos you have. I mean, it's super humbling, and thank you so much for that. So it's pleasure to be able to answer questions for you. So yeah.
I mean, hopefully we could do another one of these down the road if you'd be up to it. I'm sure everyone watching would be.
Totally down.
Yeah,
totally down.
I think that would be
there's a lot of fun.
really cool. But with that all said and done, guys, everyone, a massive thank you for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, and go give the Universe Sandbox guys some support, give them some feedback in their Discord server. So let us know what you think in the comments of this video as well. But that all said and done, everyone, massive thank you to you again, Dan, for coming on. And guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.
Cheers.